Good afternoon and welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee meeting. Can the committee members please introduce themselves? Councillor Cooper.
Andrew Cooper, I'm one of the councillors for the Newsham ward.
Councillor Zaman.
Councillor Habib Zaman, Councillor for Batley and also Chair of Adult Health and Social Care Scrutiny Committee.
Councillor Uppal.
Councillor Harpreet Uppal, Ashbrow Ward, and also Chair of the Economies and Neighbourhood Scrutiny Panel.
Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, Andrew Marchington, one of the councillors for the Gurkha Ward and Chair of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Liz Mage. We don't have any apologies. So minutes of previous meeting then. Do we agree them as a true record from the last meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Matters arising, minutes 125. There's an update in respect of the position in relation to the programme and timeline for gully clearing. Work has been undertaken by the highways and they've confirmed that the priority gritting routes are used as a template for the new gully rounds to be cleared on a cyclical basis. All of the gullies are cleared on a reactive basis as and when requested, with requests generally being generated through Ross or council inquiries. Response time is normally 15 working days, but if we have a bad storm, that creates a backlog, and customers are not normally updated on requests regarding block gullies. It was noted that the team often get requests for block gullies because customers see standing water in them and don't realise that that is a design of the gully, as they have a slit trap. Are there any other matters arising from the minutes? Oh, thank you. Do any members have any interests they need to declare? No? Okay, thank you. Admission of the public, all items are in public and the meeting is being webcast live. The recording will also be able to be viewed on the council's website after the meeting. Deputations and petitions, we've none received, and public questions, we've none received. Okay then, so if we move to item 7 then, the place-based working group final report, an excellent report that's been put together. Councillor Uppal, you want to say some words on this? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smage. So I'll be quick. We've got Councillor Cooper here as well, who's a member of the working group, and he may want to add some points as well. So the working group was established following a meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee on the 9th of September 2019. And it was resolved that a working group be established and that the members should be drawn up from the Corporate Scrutiny Panel and the Economies and Neighbourhood Scrutiny Panel to consider the matter of place-based working in greater depth. Can I firstly thank all the members that sat on the working group. I think everyone worked really well together and they all had really good questions and were very informative, and we were able to pull together a number of recommendations. I also just want to thank our governance officers. Lee Webb started the process with us, and then it was Jodie Harris who helped us to pull the report together, so many thanks to them for all their work. The main aim was to determine and review the development of the revised approach to place-based. Sorry, I can't speak today. Of place-based working in Kirklees, and how this approach would become embedded within the organisation and across council partners. So to do this work, we met on a number of occasions between September 2019 and March 2021, and we gathered evidence from council officers, but we also met with place partnership leads, and we also met with the VCS sector that was involved in the community anchor approach during COVID-19 to get evidence from them. So it was clear to me and to members of the working group that place-based working is the right approach to take. we must do more to engage citizens in their place, so they have pride in the area and they know that they are being engaged with, and that their ideas are being enacted on. And councillors, as representatives for citizens, must also be engaged in this piece of work that we're doing. There were some really good approaches, such as the place standard tool that the council are using. This is a really good way of engaging citizens, and it means us going to them rather than the standard sort of consultation approach, which might involve a questionnaire online. This is more about making sure that we go to where residents are. So there were some real benefits there. It was also clear that the community anchor approach, there were some real benefits with that, and the council worked closely with some members of the voluntary and community sector during COVID-19. And one of the things that worked really well was that we were able to implement things very quickly at a challenging time. And we do believe that the approach with the community anchors should be followed on as we come out of COVID-19 and a number of economic challenges may be facing us locally and nationally. We had a much more mixed response to the place partnership model. And whilst there are some benefits in making decisions at a local level, it's clear that some work is needed on its aims and objectives, the buy-in and how decisions are made on themes and budget allocation. For example, the key themes to be addressed through the place partnership had already been decided rather than the place partnership leads having a say in these. So I think that's something that came through quite strongly. And one of the key things we've talked about is about cultural change that is needed for place-based working to be embedded. And that's really the only way we're going to be able to do this work. So one of the things that we talked about before about the place standard tool, although the engagement side of it is very good, the idea of it is really to be able to take the priorities from residents and then be able to follow up on those and have some budget allocation towards it. Now, whilst I think that the council are starting to put some budget towards place standard work, we also need to make sure there's buy-in from all the different departments to follow up on those key priorities, especially where they may not match with corporate priorities, if it needs some spending in those local areas. So, and from a couple of the initial place standard tool pilots, whilst the engagement again went really well, the follow-up perhaps has been the thing that some councils in particular raised, that we need to make sure that happens really well. I'll just quickly flick over and just check the key recommendations that were covered, just to make sure we're covering those in here. So geography came up quite a lot in our discussions, and particularly in terms of the place partnerships. And I think we felt that we need to really understand what is the basis behind the how wards are brought together for place partnerships. Is it mainly about geography, or is it about something else? Is it about population? Is it about socio-economic data and things like that? We want to make sure, as a group, one of the key things we were saying that is geography really needs to be considered. There is, of course, a difference between administrative boundaries and what residents see, but we need to be clear about identifying place so residents understand what that place needs. Some councils also said that local transport infrastructure is a key issue when it comes to place as well, and that needs to be considered more effectively as well in the work that we do. There were some other questions as well around making sure that we are systemically engaging with town and parish councillors, and perhaps this might need a wider review in terms of the council's relationship with parish and town councils. Some discussions about the clear structure and process for making decisions at Huddersfield level, and should this again be considered as well. Again, one of the benefits that councillors raised was the additional 30,000 COVID-19 ward budget allocation that councillors received last year. This was seen as a good benefit. It meant that the money came through to wards pretty quickly, and councillors could disseminate that funding pretty quickly as well. And that was seen as a real benefit again, and it's something that council should consider going forward. Again, I've mentioned the thing about making sure clear resources are set aside after place standard engagement work. So there's clear timescales, and we know what we can do with those resources once the priorities have been have come out of the place standard work. One of the other key things around multi-agency teams working in community buildings across Kirklees. And we saw a little bit more of that during the Community Anchor programme that was set up. So loads of teams would work within one community building. It involved the VCS, the council, and a number of other partners. And again, we felt this would be a good way of making sure that a place would have a clear priority, but also that not everything was just represented in the civic buildings, and that also it would mean that some key officers would have a better understanding of place as well if they weren't just based in the centres in Huddersfield and Dewsbury. Again, we said that there should be progress made on the community anchor work and making sure that we extend those approaches with VCS partners, but also perhaps some of the smaller VCS partners as well, and making sure that we've got wide representation of the voluntary community sector as well. And as I've said before, the key thing is making sure that we've got that organisational wide culture change so we can make sure that place-based working does succeed and the key outcomes of it will be met as well. I think those are the key points that I wanted to make. Andrew, I didn't know if you wanted to sort of add anything.
Yeah, sure. A few thoughts. One of the town and parish councils, we should be engaging more with town and parish councils, but one of the issues we have is that not all town and parish councils are well resourced, and because they're not well resourced, they can be difficult to engage with, and so we've got to marry those things up. We should be doing more with them, but obviously, it's what's their capacity is a question we've got to ask, and what can we do to help build their capacity and actually make them a more useful partner for the council. And I say that as a parish councillor myself, representing Farnley, Tyas and Thurstonland around there. So that's one thought. Yeah, absolutely right. The COVID 30,000 per ward funding we found really useful in the Newsham ward, and all sorts of things we were able to do with it, which because of the flexibility of it, and so it's probably one of the most useful budgets we've had in my time as a councillor, and so I'd pretty much like to see that continue in some shape or form. Yes, we do have ward budgets, and it was just a sort of bigger version in some ways of ward budgets, and so. But we used it in interesting and innovative ways. We did a laptop project where for years 1 and 2, where currently the council at the time wasn't covering with that for schools, so we did that. Huddersfield, it is a bit of a quandary. We're concerned about places, but the geography of the places that that we've chosen appear to be, to a large extent, quite arbitrary. Huddersfield is split in two. Somehow or other, the Holme Valley and Denby Dale are put together, probably because along with Kirkburton, which is a huge area, and the areas don't necessarily share any common sense of place, other than that they're more rural and more villagey than a lot of other places. So it seems that we've put places together for the council's convenience rather than to actually embrace the idea of place, and that's something that we do need to address, the arbitrary geographies. The inflexibility of the funding and the long time it took for the place partnership funding for mental health and domestic violence is the other end of the spectrum in terms of funding, lacking in flexibility, quite time consuming, and so we've got to look at those two things and try and ensure that we do more along the flexibility road. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments that they want to put in? Councillor Marchington, Councillor Zaman, have you anything? No.
No, thank you.
No, I've got a question.
Please,
Yeah.
in terms of who's going to be the overall person that's going to be responsible for measuring the effectiveness of this new model that goes in this place-based working? Because I imagine the working group will cease at some point, and then the officers will take over. So is there somebody in post, or is it going to be a new post created?
So the officer who came to basically, well, the officer in charge of it is Rachel Spencer Henshaw, and the appropriate cabinet member is Councillor Scott, because she's done the work on the Democracy Commission. What we've said is that we've put an action plan together, and we've said that there should be some monitoring through Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. And also, I think Councillor Major mentioned before about making sure that it goes through Cabinet as well. The action plan's not totally completed yet. There's some. So the action plan has the key recommendations in it, and then it's saying who's responsible for the coordination. So most of at the moment it's Councillor Scott. There's a few that are TBC to be confirmed, and that needs firming up, and then this would be one way of making sure that we're keeping on top of what's happened with our recommendations through hopefully Overview Scrutiny Management Committee, and also by putting it through Cabinet. So that would be our thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Okay. I think, yeah, I mean, I had a question about the recommendation 6 about clear process for making decisions at Huddersfield level, but from what comments you've made, I've understood that a little bit more now. And I think it just, and the town and parish councils as well, it just goes to the complications of geography, in that there are lots of areas in Kirklees that don't have town and parish councils as well. Do you know what I mean? So it goes to that complication of geography and boundaries. Yeah, it does. Yes, I think it's a very good piece of work, and that has been undertaken, and one of the messages that councillors being at the centre of everything as well, I think, is an important one to take from the report as well, and that priorities, if you're asking people what their priorities should be, then that needs filtering up the organisation, not and acted on. I think that was a good point as well. So thank you very much for that. Can I ask then, as you said, the action plan needs updating, doesn't it? So can I ask then that we thank everybody that's been involved in this piece of work, and that the report also be sent to the cabinet member for comment on the action plan and for updating from their perspective, and then it returning to scrutiny for comment, and then to go on to cabinet for their comment on your recommendations. Okay, I think it's important that cabinet see the report and are able to look at the recommendations and how they want to take those forward. Is everybody okay with that approach?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that. Moving on then to the work programme. Items to be taken forward: Climate Commission and Roadmap to 2038. We need to be taking that forward, approach to cohesion, and the peer review. We're expecting an update on the peer review at some time towards the end of this year as well. Have any members got anything they wish to include in the management committee work programme? Can you email suggestions? But we will be holding an informal workshop to plan the work programme in either late May or early June. Okay. All right. Yeah. So can I say thank you to you all for your work this year. It's not been easy this year under the circumstances that we've had to do to cope with. But thank you for the work you've undertaken throughout the year. Okay. And if there's no other business, we'll close the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, Liz.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks.